Welcome to Lecture 5, Pattern Recognition. Have you ever laid on your back on a lazy summer afternoon and stared up at the clouds and found pictures in the clouds? Can you see here a peace sign sticking up from the clouds? Or how about an alligator? Humans are very, very good at pattern recognition. We're so good, in fact, that we see patterns that aren't even really there. Here's a few more examples. Tell me what you see in here. Did you see a man sitting in front of a skull? That's not what was there. Can you see the face in the rock? How about this one? Can you see the lady's face here in the middle? Or how about the face on Mars? We're very, very good at this pattern recognition. We give meaning and emotion to the patterns that we see, even when those patterns are not there. We run these patterns through a reality testing module right in our brain. We ask ourselves, does this make sense? Does it fit with our understanding of how the world really works? Dreams really don't have this filter, or this filter is way turned down on dreams. It's why when you're in a dream and all of this stuff is happening, it seems so realistic, it seems so okay in your dream world, but when you wake up, you realize how silly that was. One of the aspects of psychosis is they lack this reality testing, unable to filter through their brain what is really real and what is really not. We call this tendency of pattern recognition pareidolia. It's the tendency to see patterns in random noise. And we are specifically good at seeing faces. We are hardwired, just our brains being born as human beings, to recognize faces. Our brains are trying to make this pattern fit with the reality that we have. If you've never saw a crocodile or you never saw an alligator in your life, that one picture of the clouds probably wouldn't look like a crocodile or wouldn't look like an alligator to you. And once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee the pattern. A good example of pareidolia is emoticons. We can recognize the faces. We can recognize the emotions that are behind the faces. We also have auditory pareidolia. This is where we pick up accents of people, tell what they're from. Auditory pareidolia. In our language, in any language, there's a limited number of phonemes. The phonemes are the smallest type of sounds that we make in order to make our language, to be able to speak. And we pick out these phonemes even in random noise. Just like we pick out our pictures in the clouds. In noise, we hear these sounds, we hear this language. It's where electronic voice phenomena comes in. I have a little video here on electronic voice phenomena, but unfortunately on the video I cannot show it because I don't have the copyrights for it. Electronic voice phenomena is hearing sounds in the random noise. It's a lot of ghost hunters use the electronic voice phenomena, and here's all this noise, and they use their brains to try and find patterns in these noise, patterns that make sense to them. And when we're looking at noise, the patterns is language. Even though those words are not there, our brains pick up these patterns and put meaning to those sounds. Another real good example is the baby cuddly and coo doll. The baby cuddly and coo doll is one that you squeeze this baby and it cuddles and it coos and it makes all sorts of sounds. Same problem here. Our brains pick up words that really aren't there through auditory pareidolia. It just so happens that some of this cooing, there are some people out there that recognized in this cooing that baby cuddly and coo doll was saying Islam is the light. Baby Cuddly and Coo Doll had to be pulled off the market because of this. You want to find this video, type in Islam is the Light or Baby Cuddly and Coo into YouTube, and you'll pick up this video here. Unfortunately, I cannot show it in class because, once again, I do not have the copyrights. Auditory pareidolia is also where backwards masking comes in. Backwards masking is when you play something backwards to listen for the words that are there backwards. This is not so common now, but it used to be very, very common. We would play our records backwards, and it was a lot easier to do on a turntable or on a tape deck than it is in an MP3 player. Play these things backwards and listen for words, listen for hidden messages that are within the songs, within the lyrics. They're really not there, but our brain picks these things up through auditory pareidolia. We look at data mining. Data mining is sifting through massive amounts of data, only looking for specific things, not looking for everything. Now, data mining is one way to start out, actually a good theory. I'm going to go data mining, I'm going to look for some of this stuff, I'm going to create a theory, but then I'm going to test this theory, create a whole experimental study to see whether I'm accurate or not. And usually we're not. Most studies actually prove untruthful or unworthy. And data mining is really the problem when we do this subconsciously or we do this unconsciously. We find all this stuff that we're looking for, but we ignore all the contradictory stuff that's also in this. The lottery fallacy is very, very common, recognizing these patterns. The lottery fallacy is when we say, what are the odds of John Smith winning the lotto? And suppose John Smith actually did win the lotto. What are the odds of John Smith winning the lotto? Well, the odds are very, very small that this one specific person actually won the lotto. But that's the wrong question to ask. The question to ask is, what are the odds of anyone winning lotto? And when you ask that question, the odds are actually pretty good. People win the lotto on a fairly regular basis. People even win lotteries multiple times on a fairly regular basis. The question is not, what are the odds of you winning the lotto? The question should be, what are the odds of anyone winning the lotto? The fact that you won the lotto is simply coincidence. We have hyperactive detective agency. I've already spoken about this one before. Hyperactive detection agency is where we see life. We see that this person is actually an agent. They're acting on their own. They have free will. They have thought. They have consciousness. They're making their own choices. Having hyperactive detective agency allows us to give personalities to cartoon characters. It allows us to see the hidden hand behind coincidence. It allows us to see people, agencies, governments conspiring against us with this hyperactive detection agency. Although there is no hidden hand, although there is no conspiracy, although these are just really two-dimensional creations, they are not alive, they're fictional characters, we process now these through our emotions, and they seem as if they're alive. We give essence to them. Essence is what makes something what it is. I used the example of a child's favorite toy before. That you have this favorite toy and you give it essence. You make it a real person in your mind. You treat it as a real person. You talk to it as a real person. We give it life. We may see these patterns in events because of our hyperactive detection agency, which is where our conspiracies come from. Being able to see patterns is one of our strengths as human beings. Being able to see patterns all around us is a strength. It allows us to recognize when things are going our way, when things are not. It allows us to recognize that there's a pattern to every time I eat something, I have an allergy to it, so I know not to eat it again. It's a pattern to recognize that if I do A, B, and C, then I'm successful. There's a lot of patterns that are great to recognize, and it is one of our powerful, powerful strengths as humans that we have, that we can recognize these patterns. And it's good as long as we don't allow it to get out of control. It's good as long as we understand it. Critical thinking skills, what we're talking about in this class, allow us to really test our reality, to see, is this true or not? Is the pattern that I'm recognizing, is this a valid pattern, or is it a pattern my brain is just putting together? In our next lecture, we're going to look at how we construct our own reality, or constructed reality.